So we've transferred our graphical image into CAD. We've done some basic outline work where we've identified things like retaining walls. We've identified patterns that we're going to create for the driveway, for walkways, gates, fences. This is all in L1. And then we've also identified all the details that we have in L2. So L2 consists of the backyard. So here we've shown once again, the retaining wall, the small little eating area, any other eating areas that may be, for instance, off the dining room, living spaces, kitchens, planting bed areas, and then walk down to the pool, and then basic pool patterns as well, the coping area. Once those elements have actually been completed and you're happy with them, you want to start adding other pieces to this puzzle. So we have in here, for instance, we have grass. Where am I going to install grass? We're just using a general hatch for the grass, and that's in both L1 and L2. So in here we'll also have the grass, and then we're having the other landscape elements that are here. So for instance, I've got trees. So a different selection of trees. And these symbols can be either copied or loaded down from websites, or you can create your own. You make one and then you scale them up to different sizes. I mean, this is just a circle with a bunch of lines in it. So it's not that difficult to do. What you can do is, based on some of the earlier information, just copy over what has already been done. And you can use those hand drawn items and create CAD items. So this becomes part of your library. And you can see as soon as you add some landscape elements, the actual softscape, it really brightens up the picture and adds a lot more to it. Remember, you have to include all the furniture pieces, and the furniture pieces have to be to scale. So you've already found the documentation that requires the furniture pieces. And we'll do that for the backyard, and we'll also do that for the front yard. So you can see as you create layers for these things and you put them in the drawings, then you can turn them on and off very easily to manipulate and work through parts and pieces of the drawings. I also have in here different sort of pavers that we have. So this is the driveway infill paver. There's two different types of pavers. There it is, the general paver, and then the infill paver. And what you basically do in this case, I was just going to pull one up. We're going to talk later on in another exercise about these patterns. And these are standard tile patterns that are created by primarily the slate industry. Slate installation of patterns. There's a whole bunch of random patterns that are tileable, which simply means they fit into one another. And it makes for an easy count when we get to the point where we're going to actually do estimating in one of our other programs. So you can see how these tiled patterns here fit into one another. The nice thing about it is we have a count. If I know, for instance, that this tile pattern is X amount of square feet and it's got so many of this size and so many of that size, let me just zoom in on that. So many of one size, so many of the other, so many of the third. It makes it easy to order this later on, like I say, when we get into estimating and we have to order the parts and pieces for our project. This makes it really easy to do so. So we're going to talk about patterns at another exercise, and then showing you how to create a pattern, turn the pattern into a group, and then fill a space with that pattern. And you can see how beautifully that shows to the client exactly what you want to do. So we want to make sure we highlight the borders, highlight the infills, and then show any sort of individual patterns. And that'll become important when we actually go into the details of each of the specific elements, and that will come with time. So here in the backyard, I also want to put some decking information. So once again, it's on a separate layer, and I'm going to go into the wood deck area or the decking area, and you can see how the pattern now shows the deck, and the deck should have an edge treatment, some sort of framing to show a step down, and that's what these arrows are. The arrows are showing the step sequence that are in these different elements, so you can really clearly see it. So in the beginning, you may only have the outline and the couple of steps, but then you'll fill it in with the wood pattern, and the wood pattern is the direction of the wood that you're going to be using for this. And we typically draw our wood pattern in a 5.5-inch wide plank. That's what's commonly used in the stores. That's available in any of the big box hardware stores. And here's a gazebo, and then eventually, after we've traced the gazebo, we'll fill it in. So I'll have this is identified in the pergola layer. It should have been in the gazebo layer. So there is the gazebo roof line and then the pergola. Notice how it nicely fits over top of the furniture as well. So we're going to go through and fill in all the different patterns. And eventually you're going to add all the different landscape elements. The pool will have some sort of decking material. Again, it has some kind of pattern. We'll be looking at the different patterns that are available to us. And then you're going to add some general dimensions. And what these dimensions do, they're just overall dimensions. Notice again, at different layers, so I can turn them on and off easily. And what this does is it gives me the general sizes of the sort of the massed areas, or the specific areas or grouped areas. And you can see how it's just along the two sides and the length. So not the side of the house, but the other two, just to give some general dimensions. And then same in here. What we have are the dimensions away from the house. So we get to get a sense of how big this plan is, and any sort of breakdown that makes sense, like in this case where the gate was available in the project here. So we're going to be adding that. And then finally, once this is done, you'll be adding your notes. And the notes are critical because they basically tell the story, and they tell the story of what is actually here. So these notes, they're carefully planned out, they're carefully lined out, identify all the elements. Now, some of them are far more specific than what we need to at this time, but if this was part of the project planning process where you've already know what materials they are, you start including them in the notes. And see how the notes don't interfere with the dimensions, and they're all clean and off to one side and in a straight row. And then eventually we have these references that will identify the different elements that we're going to be doing in this project. So this is sort of where you need to be for assignment number 3. And when you go through the literature for assignment number 3, what the component requirements are, this is basically it. You'll show the furniture, you'll show the kitchen. The components are all going to be drawn on separate layers. The pool decking. Try to find a pool that's available online or through a pool supplier. Don't make up your own sizes. I've seen some bizarre things that make absolutely no sense. That's because somebody's trying to make it up. Use their standard pool sizes. And in this case, we're also going to have the wood decking, pergolas, gazebos, retaining walls, walkways, driveways. You may want to, like in this case, this individual wanted to add something else. So they wanted to add some unique paving stones, raised planting beds. You can do that. I mean, this is really anything that you'd like to. And they did a very good study in the kitchen components of it, the outdoor kitchen, and they've already listed it here. So the more detail at this point, the better, because the next steps, we start dissecting each one of those areas very precisely. And from week to week to week, we'll have assignments where we'll look at, for instance here, the paving details, what the section is through the driveway, what are the curb details, all the different edging, and then the patterns. We'll talk about patterns again in upcoming lessons. So you got paving details for the road, walking paver details for any sort of pedestrian traffic. We're also going to be looking at retaining wall details and sections, and then we'll move on to the pergola and what it looks like and all of the elements along with it. So the final project will be more or less this gambit of elements all put together in this level of detail so that we can then apply this for a permit. And these are the steps that we're going to have to take. But for now, we're just taking it one step at a time. Some people like to see the overall picture and come back down, and other people are overwhelmed by the overall picture. Say, no, don't show me all that stuff. Just show me step by step. So we got both in this one, and you'll see how important it is, again, that you've put the research in, You've traced your elements out to the best detail as possible. You've come up with some really good numbers, and then we can move forward from there.